Okay, so the title of the exhibition is called Backyard Swag. For those who don't know, backyard for lots of people simply means their home. Not just the back of their yard, but it means their home. So that and Stephen Cheng's song, Always Together, becomes the point of departure for this exhibition. So if you come to Van Gogh House, you're going to see some sculptural objects that are assembled together by different materials and objects. And all of those refer to domestic life. So some of these objects include net curtains that are circular shaped, along with burgundy carpeted staircases and bits of furniture and objects, and also pheasant tails. So and also crucially some concrete blocks, bricks that have plant patterned bricks. So your visitors who come to see these sculptures, they're wondering what are they looking at? Why are these bricks there, and why is the curtain in a semicircular form? So I'm referring exactly back to these parties I had gone to, and there is sometimes a misconception that when you listen to reggae and dub in someone's home, there's a misconception that you are hearing it in a concrete jungle in inner city. Sometimes they're played in inner city, but sometimes a black family could have made a living for themselves and had bought a semi-detached house. That can happen. So I'm also referring to a classic post-war semi-detached house where windows are curved. And so when you look at my sculpture objects, they are making that same shape, that same form, and those concrete blocks are referring to classic these semi-detached houses where they're using these concrete blocks to divide their garden to the neighbours' gardens. So when you look at my sculpture objects, and then you're looking at these pheasant tails, shape, that same form, that is definitely referring to Notting Hill Carnival, where people use these tails. But at the same time, those tails are also used in Chinese opera as headgear. So there is crossover, there is multiculturalism, there is not a singular narrative. I'm not presenting that. I'm presenting a complex melting pot of cultures coming together. So because those concrete blocks that we see in semi-detached homes post-war Britain, you also see exactly the same bricks in Jamaica. I'm not presenting. So I guess my things, when you isolate them, they're very familiar. It's because I've grouped them together that they look otherworldly,
wow,
unfamiliar. But if you concentrate, you look at them individually, they should be very familiar.
What was that process like for you of putting these pieces together, in terms of kind of emotions flooding back and feeling of whether it be accomplishment or what does that kind of feel like for you?
I was really trying to use my memory of myself at these blues parties. The kind of things that you would notice, which are actually quite random. A door handle. You go to a blues party and that might stay in your memory all your life. There's no reason why that should be, but memories work in very strange ways. What you choose to remember, sometimes it's not that you choose it. Sometimes it's just accidental. You've noticed something and it resonates with you. But what's interesting is the thing about music and sound. And music and sound bouncing off furniture, passing through curtains. Where is music coming from and where is it landing? And the idea that a door handle that you remember and that sound passing through the gap of that handle.
Yeah. Sound systems pushing, as you said, pushing.
Sound system. So bass works really well with well-made sound system, and sound system that is pushing bass, because bass is low frequency sound, and it's just about manageable for human ears. But any lower frequency than that, then you won't hear it. So it's very good sound system that you can hear bass. But more importantly, sound system is there because it's pushing the sound of bass. It's pushing air. So metaphorically, I am putting these sculptural objects together where the sound system is pushing air, and it's doing exactly the same thing that I experienced as a kid in these clubs, in these people's homes, where the sound system has pushed the sound of bass, and really kind of imagining how that sound has landed on a cushion, passed through a curtain, just thinking about how sound is passing through time and where is it landing.
And I mean, at what point, and almost maybe going back to the start, at what point did you realise that of sound would be so incorporated in that of your work?
Apart from my interest in music, I'm also thinking a lot about sound, because sound comes before music. So if I'm interested in music, therefore I'm also interested in sound. And if sound comes before music, then it's making me think about sound that's quite primitive. And it just so happens that for the last 25, 30 years, on some art projects, I collaborate with my mum. So she's part of my practice as an artist. And then in the last 10 years, I've been looking after my mum as a carer. So I get involved in all aspects of her care, including giving her a wash. And it's when I give her a shower, when I start scrubbing her tummy, that I start imagining, by the way, that's where I come from. I come from inside my mum's body. And that's the thing that allows me to think about sound and about primitive sound, where we actually experience the vibration of our mother's heartbeat in a similar way that we are now experiencing bass. So, but before music, we are experiencing sound, and we're experiencing it through our mothers by being inside their bodies. And it's really the feeling of that sound and hearing that sound before we see the world. So that becomes so intrinsic in what I think about.
Well, does that feeling then almost, my mind from when you said that, takes it then back to that of blues parties where there's then no vision, it's dark, and that primitive feeling of dancing to reggae and the primitive almost sway that you have? This
is it. I mean, those blues parties that I went to, and I'm sure it's the same in most blues parties at people's homes. People deliberately turn all the lights off so that there's nothing to look at. So all you are actually doing is that you are feeling and listening to music. So there's a circularity about going to those blues parties that really inspired me, and also me thinking about sound and thinking about being inside our mother's tummy and feeling and hearing heartbeats and the beat of this music right now.
Yeah.
For me, there's a definite connection there.
100%. And it's such a powerful, whether it be that of music, whether it be just rhythm, sound systems, it's such a powerful feeling. And can you see this continuing in that of your work maybe to come?
Yeah, but also, before I answer that, there's also the idea of the word for mother and the word for Mother Earth and the sound of dub and the sound of bass. because actually bass, we're not actually supposed to enjoy bass, because bass is sort of replicating Earth's vibrations. And when Earth is really vibrating, it's because Earth is making seismic shifts when we get earthquake. So bass is similar to the rumbling of an earthquake and the rumbling of mother's heartbeat when we're inside their tummy. So there's a real connection between that. But also about your question, what I imagine later on.
Yes. Yeah.
So when I'm scrubbing my mum's tummy and I'm washing her, I'm thinking about heartbeats, I'm thinking about bass, and there was one time where I asked Mum, when you were giving birth to me, what were you thinking as you were in labour? And my mum said that grandma, great-grandma, great-grandmother's mother, great-grandmother's mother's mother, all of them were lined up next to her. It's not possible. But that's what... So I said, Mum, what were you thinking when you gave birth to me? That's what she said.
Wow.
So there's all of these tremors, there is all of these vibrations, there's all of these echoes, there are all these heartbeats next to her giving birth to me. It just compelled me to somehow make a piece of work about that using sound. And my mum has always told me stories about grandma, because I never met her. She passed away before I was born. And so being compelled to make a piece of work about her, and Chinese names are often with 3 characters. So my name, Dinu Li, that's 3 characters. The middle character to my grandma's name is Moon in English. So the guy who made me these sound systems, Dom Allen, I said to Dom, can you make me a sound machine that can record moonlight and turn moonlight into sound? And we were funded by the British Council to do a research project to go to my grandma's ancestral home. And the process of applying for the grant and what have you, it was a very slow process, which allowed Dom a lot of time to go and develop this kit, which ended up being very portable, only the size of a brick. And so I took this kit to grandma's birthplace, her village home, which because she died in her 50s, so a long time ago. So this empty house is now occupied by nature, and nature has smashed through the roof of this house, which was a perfect situation, because the thing had to be recorded at nighttime, and it really would resonate with me more that the machine is inside her house rather than outside. But how do you then get the moonlight to shine into the house? Well, the nature did that for me. Nature smashed through the roof, and moonlight beamed into the house, and Dom's kit then recorded the sound, recorded moonlight, and electronically turned it into sound, which feels like, when you hear it, it feels like electronic pulses of grandma.
Wow.
So all the things I'm saying about, the things I'm saying here about dub, bass, and bass pushing air to make us feel vibration, and the vibration of being inside your mother's tummy, and then this recording, there's something circular about that.
Certainly, and circular, and also quite emotional, quite emotive with how music is, and how obviously this new piece of work is. How has that been for you in terms of the process of doing that?
Then it's made me think a lot about migration, because so for my grandma, there's two kinds of migration. There's one that is much more of a localized migration of my grandma marrying off to the male side, therefore having to leave her ancestry and move to a different clan, a different family. When she married my granddad and then gave birth to my mum, then granddad emigrated to the West. That's a classic Chinese migration story. So knowing this then pulls it back to your question and about all this stuff, because all of this has to take us back to the middle 1800s. In the middle 1800s, the British establishment was beginning to think about abolishing African black slaves. But at the same time, they were worried that if they did abolish it, what would happen? Because they were needing human technology to do things and to do it for free. So they were thinking about this, but they were also afraid. At the same time, they had won the Opium War in China, which allowed them to sustain slavery by using Chinese slaves, which we call indentured workers. So those Chinese laborers would be going to parts of the world that Britain had taken, including Jamaica. The ones who went to Jamaica, they were multiple skilled. Skilled in engineering, skilled in doing lots of stuff. But in the beginning, they were working in plantations. Slowly, over decades, they then intermarriage with local people, and it's the descendants of Chinese slaves that then, because of their engineering skills, they then set up recording studios, which takes us back to Stephen Cheng in 1967, going to these recording studios to make the sound. And it's these engineers that provided platforms for early day Bob Marley to go and make his sounds. And some of these engineers were also good at playing music. So some of these descendants of Chinese slaves also introduced electronic guitar to reggae. So there is this impact about migration. And the impact is not always the stuff that we're hearing on YouTube. Some of this impact is what we dance to, what we celebrate. So, yeah, from discovering this song as a 5-year-old to learning more about this through music, and what happens when people migrate from A to B. It's just astonishing.
It's fantastic, and it's so, as you said there and put it perfectly, circular and something that people may not always be as aware of and almost take notice of, which I think is very vital too.
Just the impact of what happens when multiculturalism happens. What actually happens? There's so many positive things that can happen. Certainly,
and obviously this work is such a celebration of all of those things. So thank you very, very much for giving me the time and speaking, and
Thank you for the questions that allowed me to reveal what's happening in Van Gogh House.
Amazing. Awesome stuff.
Brilliant.